All right, so what is this, episode 6? Pretty sure it is. If you're looking for DFS data, that'll come out on Tuesday or Wednesday. I've done a lot of the Auto Club research already before Daytona. I did post a video looking at the previous Auto Club race. If you want to go look at that, I did some research after that. Looked at some things that I want to focus on entering this week. I'll talk about that most likely Tuesday night, if that gets uploaded Tuesday night, or Wednesday. Either way, that's kind of the idea. I just try and take Tuesday off. Real quickly, thank you for everybody who has supported us on Patreon this month. It's been a fantastic start. I couldn't ask for anything better. So thank you so much. Thank you for tuning into the live shows. Thank you for watching my content, Pierce's content. Outside of that, this is more so for me to just rant and talk and rave and everything. And we are going to rant and rave. And so do we want to talk about the draw the NASCAR had and calling the caution for the Truck Series race? Or are we going to talk about how slow it was for other cautions? I don't really want to discuss that a whole lot. Let's talk about the Gen 7 in more detail. And I felt like I was in the Twilight Zone. For the past week, I felt like I was going insane. And I need to do a better job at standing my ground and trusting my instincts, which several people told me yesterday as the race was going on. But throughout the start of the year, I was like, well, one, obviously this car isn't ready. Two, I'm not entirely sure on the trust factor, the safety factor of this car. And let's talk about Burton's flip real quick. And clearly, not every wreck is going to flip over. Clearly, special circumstances are being made. But let's really dive into the concern that we have there, because that wreck and the wrecks that we've seen resulted in the blowovers that we've seen recently, last 5-10 years and stuff, is typically having an additional force acting on it. And I can't remember the name of it. When you go, I guess all of you guys have had a license for a while, but when you first obtained a license, maybe not even a license, when you look at rollover accidents like IRL, real life rollover, there's usually, and I forgot what it's called, it's like a pivot point, an actuating point. I don't remember exactly, but say you're driving an SUV or a Jeep or whatever it is, and you fly off the side of the road, and you're sliding sideways and your tires dig in, or they hit a curb, or they hit something. Well, they hit something that causes the weight to transfer over to the side. You flip over, things of that nature. A lot of the more recent NASCAR flips have had an additional force acting on the car. It's typically another car hitting the side of the car when there's already some lift happening, and the momentum from the car behind, the inertia carries through the car being already lifted, and it flips over. The issue that I saw with Harrison Burton's wreck is that would not have been a flip in the Gen 6. That would not have been a flip with the COT. And I was waiting I wanted to see a car flip over first. And it's the real reason I was excited to see a car flip over for this new generation car, is because I was really curious on how the bottom acts, the bottom of the car. So clearly, they have it's leveled off. Like there's no like grooves or anything to distribute or disrupt the air flowing from underneath the car. But one of my initial ideas that I was going to talk about, and I did it because I have to at least, hold back how crazy I sound. But my initial thought on that was that's going to act like an airplane wing with just a flat surface to put air against. That'll create liftoff. And I was like, well, no. Clearly, NASCAR can't be that incompetent. Clearly, they thought about that. That's had to come across in board meetings before, and they okayed it. Clearly, that's not an issue. I think it is. I think that's the main reason we saw Harrison Burton flip over at such a low speed. It was so easy for Burton to flip over there. Another interesting thing that nobody's really talked about, but the rear diffuser has the potential to act like a rear wing in the right situations that'll create, yet again, more liftoff when they get spun around. I'm very curious to see that, and I felt so alive. This was the first NASCAR race I've probably ever watched in my life where I was like, hell yeah, we're going to kill people. Hell yeah, we're going to injure fans. Because not only did you have Burton flip over pretty easily, you had And pretty much any time a car got against the wall, you saw more lift than normal. And so, like, when Gragson got in the wall, I'm not saying, Gragson almost flipped over, but when you look at the amount of lift that these cars are getting, like, right off the bat, the initial lift is way higher than the Gen 6 was. From when somebody makes contact with the wall, the rear end lifts up, and, Gragson hit the wall, rear end came up, pretty fast compared to older cars, and kind of stayed up and kind of floated underneath the air against the wall. So that's interesting. I'm looking at, clearly they're going to change stuff for Talladega, but my main concern is I think we have a higher chance of having flips at intermediate tracks. I really do. Specifically, like when we look at this week at Auto Club, when we look at fast racetracks, like if I can think of anything. I know Michigan isn't an intermediate track. When I think of the two tracks that pop into my mind, I think not Atlanta, or we'll see what happens in Atlanta. But Auto Club, Michigan, I just went blank on any other track the series races at. But so we're going to those tracks with more horsepower than we had for the Daytona 500. We're going to those racetracks with cars that are looking like they're going to want to get upside down anytime somebody hits them once they're already spinning and the inertia transfers through the cars. That's a very interesting situation. So we get past that whole thing. I forgot if I talked about it or not. I know I talked about it with the guys that I watched the races with. And I'm not just watching them with a bunch of morons. Guys that know what they're talking about when they come to race cars, despite how stupid we may sound. And when we saw Logano's wreck in the duels, that was the first real incident that we saw, at full speed. And Logano bounced off that wall. I don't know if it's because they replaced the safer barriers at Daytona, because they were clearly new safer barriers this year, and I'm assuming they probably had them for the 24 hours Daytona, but I was more concerned about watching the races and not necessarily looking at the safer barrier. But when we looked at them hitting the wall, the safer barriers almost didn't give it all. I'm assuming that's designed. And that's not me being like, oh, these safer barriers are unsafe. That is not the conversation we're having here. I'm just pointing that out. I don't know if anybody else really saw that. But it seemed like they're using a denser foam for those safer barriers. And I don't know if that's resulting or if this is just an additional aspect of it. But Logano's car bounced off that car like it didn't even take any absorption at all. And that's mainly the reason Harrison Burton got hit in the duels, because Logano shot off the wall, a lane and a half, and clipped Burton. That would not have happened with the old cars. And so I was pondering, and we didn't really see it with the Xfinity cars. We didn't really see them bounce off the walls like that next gen happened, or even in the truck race. You would have you'd have the vehicles hit the wall and kind of stay on them. So I was very curious entering the 500 of how I wanted to see a car hit the wall at full speed. Let's go. Let's hit it. And we had multiple cars do that. And Gragson got against the wall and stayed against the wall. The final wreck, you had Reagan basically have the whole front end of the car torn off and flying back down the racetrack. You had McDowell make substantial contact, and I can't necessarily recall what happened with McDowell. I probably need to look at a replay real quick. Hold on, give me a moment. Okay, so I look back at the last wreck. I would show this, but it's more of an audio only type of ordeal. And you can go back and watch this with me as well. I'm looking at them coming across the line for the 500. And so, and shout out to Keselowski. The poor bastard's been wrecked in about every super speedway race last 14 races, and so I have no issue with him just taking a revenge tour out on the field. But, Blaney gets in the wall, and, man, part of me was like, they're going to black flag Cindric for forcing Bubba below that yellow line. 2 cars going to be illegal. Bubba's going to be fixed into the 500 win. But, anyway, so they get stupid. Keselowski bounces off of Reagan, comes down to McDowell. McDowell shoots up the track, takes out Reagan. They both hit the wall pretty head-on. Reagan's more in a rotation than McDowell is. And Reagan hits that wall a ton. I mean, it rips the front end of that car completely off. McDowell also hits and shoots back down the track about half a lane. But this is doing my point. I mean, these are like full-on, just head-on collisions at full speed into the wall. And the old safety barrier would move substantially. I'm not saying it's not moving here, but like I said, I'm assuming that's in the design. Anyway, the main point that I want to make here is this car is rigid as hell. It is not given at all. And I'm not saying this is the 80s where you need crunch room. That was the main idea behind making the cars so long in the late 70s and early 80s is, well, when you hit the wall with a steel body vehicle, you want crunch room. But these cars are taking some vicious hits, man. Oh, Jesus Christ. Okay, never mind. Let's tune into the video format here. We're gonna show the TV really quick here. So, and yet again, shout out to people recording on their phone. And I'm going to go back and look at Logano's wreck too, because this popped in my mind. But watching this race in real time, I remember, God, dude, someone's going to break their neck in this car. And Stenhouse's wreck shot out to me. And I went back and look at Stenhouse in this crash. Here we go. Watch this. Watch his head here. Watch this. He gets yeeted to the wall. Good Lord. Oh my Lord. Did you see that? I feel like I'm watching the fucking Zapruder. I feel like I'm watching Kennedy's assassination. And look at that frame, what is it, 313? But look at this, good Lord, man. Good Lord. How is that not, I mean, clearly that's death without the Hans device, but that's a lot of movement. Jesus Christ. I don't think because typically the way the other cars observed impacts, you would typically not have somebody's head move that much, and that was the main concern behind more concussions happening, because these drivers' heads are just strapped into the car like a cocoon. But that is absolutely wild, and I'm pretty sure Logano's wreck did the exact same thing. Let's see, let's find how that's wild. I mean, that, give or take 3-4 inches away from hitting the steering wheel. Now, I'm not saying other wrecks in the past haven't done that, but this is what I mean. Like, these guys are hitting these walls a shit ton here. I feel like I'm going crazy. Let's find Logano's wreck real quick. Okay, all right, so this is real time. I have not seen this wreck since Thursday. Just in my brain, it's similar to Stenhouse. But hello, this is future me with my headset on. For whatever reason, when I showed the Logano crash the first time, it legit corrupted that part of the video, or that part of the recording. Maybe it's a sign, I don't know. I didn't want to just not have it there, so we'll watch it real time. And sadly, didn't get my reaction watched again, and it's not nearly as bad as Stenhouse's crash, but you do see that it is quite a violent impact for Logano. Which is, a bit of a concern, and we'll talk about that more in the video. But I just noticed that it didn't record, so I'm recording it now to at least include it here. Ah, bummer. Just realized anyway. But yeah, these collisions are freaking wild, man. I feel like, these cars are so rigid. The impact is going straight to the driver here. That's why. And I fully believe, looking at these wrecks now, that's why the test dummies, showed, fatal accidents, because those dummies were just taken. All of the impact is transferred to the driver in these cars. And that is an issue. Yet again, more testing was needed. But that's a concern. And so when I saw those wrecks, that's why I was like, man, look, this is the most dangerous car that they have ran in years. It races just like a Gen 4. But in terms of safety, man, these cars are rigid. And that's not even talking about other factors. And so let's talk about the wheels here. So, going to one lug, if you look at races or if you look at series that race one lug, when they have an issue with that, whether it be IndyCar, F1, F2000, whatever the case is, one lug leads to an issue to where, okay, you can't put a tire back on. That usually retires a car. But with the amount of pit stops that NASCAR does, and the amount of tires going on and off, and the amount of usage that I don't even know what it's called exactly. Is it the hub that the lug that goes over? sorry, I apologize. I've never worked with a single lug wheel in my life. So my terminology might be a bit mixed up here. But we saw it with, Blaney. We saw it with Briscoe. Not with Briscoe Spin. We had, I think Truex had an issue. Kyle Busch had an issue. Several drivers or teams had issues, having, trouble putting the wheels back on, after a certain amount of time. And actually so Gralla lost a wheel because obviously it wasn't on all the way. Somebody else lost the wheel, and I'm not talking about the wheel disintegrating off of Haley. That's a whole other issue. Somebody else had a loose wheel and pitted under a yellow. I don't remember who it was exactly, but they confirmed that wheel was not on all the way. And so we had multiple instances of those wheels being loose, and that really reminds me of the wrecks and the fatal accidents that we had regarding IndyCar and fans. I believe at Charlotte, I believe at Michigan, I believe at another track. Don't remember off the top of my head, but we had several, people get injured and killed whenever IndyCar would wreck and a tire would fly over the fence. And that's a real concern as well. I think everybody's at danger at these racetracks, which is yet again making me feel alive. I've never felt so alive watching NASCAR other than at 500, because there's so many things that are looking to go wrong here, okay? And that's not even that. We're not even talking about Snyder's wreck, What an awesome looking wreck for Snyder. And yet again, I don't understand why they don't run the Xfinity car in the Cup Series. That's just me, but whatever. But honest to God, when you compare the Xfinity car to the Cup car, I think the Xfinity car is far safer. But yeah, we're gonna have hub issues, and whether these teams are too stubborn to retire, that's gonna lead to guys losing tires. And I truly believe we're gonna see that this year. I really do believe that is going to be an issue. Maybe not every week, but it's going to happen more than NASCAR wants it to happen. Secondly, when we look at the tires just disintegrating, just coming apart off of Haley's car, that concerns me at the really intense racetracks that we go to, like Dover, like Bristol, even Darlington to an extent, with just the high amount of load that these wheels are going to have. And that's a concern. Same thing with the suspension of this godforsaken car. You saw some of these teams, which, this is insane, man. They've buffed up the body of this car and just sissified the suspension components. Like when you look at Harvick, when he got involved in that wreck, completely destroyed the suspension of Harvick's car. It really had no damage. I was really surprised that Bubba didn't have damage when he got hit by the car going sideways. These are weak suspension problems that we're going to run into. And it really makes it to where if you hit the wall, you're SOL. I think you're completely done. Despite the fact that the body might look good, you're going to be breaking stuff left and right. Outside of that as well, because they're running, 18-inch rims, we don't have an interliner in these tires. And God forbid you spin out and blow tires, you're just done. You're sitting on the frame of the car or the roadblock, I believe. But you're sitting there. You can't move. We all saw Logano. Hell, he got spun out by the push truck on pit road because he's literally just riding on metal. There's hardly no resistance. If you spin wrong or anything, you're just going to... if you're being pushed by something, you're going to spin out, or you're not going to get any momentum. And so when you spin out and blow these tires, and God forbid you blow all four of them, you're kind of screwed. Best case situation, you blow one tire, and it's a front tire. That's the best case situation, and I don't think that's going to happen. If you see somebody spin out and lock up the tires, they're blowing all four of those tires, and it's going to be really difficult getting back to pit road. Clearly, because the fucking winner of the race blew the tires on the burnout, and they had to change tires to get it to victory lane. So, I mean, there's so much wrong here. Continuing on without the interliners, if you blow a tire entering a corner, and let's go on the bit extreme side. So let's say you blow a tire this week at Auto Club, entering turn 1, you're fucked. You're absolutely screwed. It's a spitting image of the Gen 4. I can't believe it. We've gone back in time, man. I love it. We've just gone back in time because there's nothing to hold these tires. And I understand NASCAR wanted to go to 18-inch rims because, oh, that's what street cars run. And I understand leaving the 15-inch rim. I think the 15-inch rim has a ton of safety factors and safety regarding it. But if you want to go higher, you gotta respect the fact that these drivers are not running interliners. They're just fucking blowing tires. And it's, we wouldn't run interliners at the short tracks these last years. And you would see when somebody blew a tire, they just fly into the wall because it just rim on asphalt. And that's how it's going to be. So that's another aspect that, yet again, NASCAR just doesn't care about. But yeah, these cars are so rigid. The impacts of these crashes are being transferred to the drivers. And do we want to talk about the broadcast? Now, I watch the international feed with no commercials because I don't have cable. I have Hulu. But I don't have Hulu Live because I'll pay for it here and there. But for the grand scheme of things, I'll just keep streaming, NFL games and everything that I stream I can find online, And I always look at it because, I stream a lot of UFC as well because I like watching UFC fights. And I look at it like, look, in 10 years when I can afford everything, I'll buy everything. I'll buy, good old DirecTV, which I don't even know if it'll be there by that. But I'll go ahead and buy DirecTV. I'll go ahead and buy all the pay-per-views. I will do that. Right now, a little tight. I'm going to stream stuff. So, apparently there was a shitload of broadcasts on the Fox broadcast. And we can tell whenever it goes to commercial because our feed goes silent, but it's still the camera angle of whatever they're choosing to show. But what they didn't show was a lot of the things that would make NASCAR bad. Like, they did not show Haley's wheel on the broadcast, despite the fact that it was all over Twitter, and you could see that it literally just ripped off the hub. It took them forever to find Kaz Grala losing that wheel. And they did not show any of the drivers who took hard hits getting medical attention and getting out of that car. Gregson did not have the window net down for a good period of time. That took the wind out of him because these cars are so stiff. They are so rigid. And they didn't even catch Harrison Burton flipping. I don't know what the hell these guys are doing, but whoever is in charge of because you're in a command room and there's some director saying, go to camera A6 or whatever the case is. Fire that man. Just fire him. Promote some intern who deserves to be there in charge of that stuff. Let them have the green light because Fox is absolutely shitting the bed with these broadcasts. And they're not showing stuff. They are not showing things that are making them look bad. NASCAR is not showing a lot of these bad angles. They're not I was surprised they even replayed Byron hitting that. Oh, I didn't even think Byron hit the wall a shit ton, man. And we've seen cars do that before. And the cars get destroyed, but when cars get destroyed, that's typically outside of, the steering column with Danica flying up, but that was the old Xfinity car. Typically, whenever the cars get destroyed or, crumple that much, that is absorbent injury. That is absorbent energy. And these cars are not doing that at all. These cars are staying stiff as hell, man. So I would not be shocked if we see a driver miss a race or a couple races this year due to concussion. I would not be shocked if we see a driver this year miss some races due to injury. That's where I'm at. We are at the highest chance of injuring a driver, and I just love it. I feel so alive. It makes me actually watch racing with the passion, and I can understand, the racing now. But yeah, that's that, man. These cars they haven't been tested, man. These guys are the test subjects. And when we get to intermediate tracks and we have some bad wrecks and some fast wrecks, which I think I'm really curious to see some wrecks this week at Auto Club in this next gen car, and certainly tires blowing. That'll be really interesting because I think it'll just send you straight into the wall. So that's interesting. Let's talk about Danica Patrick really quick before we end this one. And look, before you start, I can already hear some of y'all, which I don't think any of you guys still listening are thinking this, but I'm sure there's some people who are like, oh, well, you're just a sexist pig. You don't like women. That is not the case. I don't like mean people. Okay, ironic coming from me. But I don't like rude people. And I'm not talking about Danica in the car, which is very, very rude to her crew. I'm not talking about Danica to the fans, which is still rude, a little bit more understanding, but still rude. But rude as a person outside of that. Very, world revolves around me. Very, never did anything wrong. Very, self-assured that she is just God's gift to racing. And I just can't. I don't like Danica Patrick. I really don't. So see, I'm not attacking her driving ability, which I will. I'm not attacking her for being a female, because people always assume that you just don't like women. You don't like women in the motorsports. Actually, that's the wrong voice. That's my boomer voice. This would be, you don't like women in racing. You don't like the strong, independent woman in a male-dominated sport. That is not the case. Okay, I would love to have female drivers in racing. Segue real quick. What's her name? The driver of the 25 car in the ARCA series, part of the Busch sponsorship, the Busch push, as you will, for the women in NASCAR or the women in racing. Didn't know you had to go full throttle at Daytona. No shit, missed it because I was doing a live show, but I joined my guys after we finished that, and they were like, "Hey, Cruz, did you hear what the spotter was telling the driver of the 25 car, or one of the female drivers?" Which I'm pretty sure it was Tony, I think. Tony Bellinger, driver of the 25 car. And I was like, no, what did I miss? What did they say? Well, early in the race, the spotter was chiming into her, and I heard it later, of being like, "Oh, we're losing the draft. What's up? Is the motor acting weird? What are you doing? Are you lifting?" And she answered, "Well, I'm not lifting anymore." And the spotter just went off on her, basically saying, "You cannot lift here at Daytona. What the hell are you doing? We flat-footed around here. You don't lift in the corners. What are you doing?" So that's the Busch push. That's a driver for the Busch push. Anyway, I would love to have female drivers in racing that are good drivers. And I think Hailie Deegan is a good driver. Too much pressure has been put on that young woman to be great right off the bat. Hailie is a good driver. She deserves to be in racing. That's just how it is. Oh, but shut the fuck up. Okay, she's getting sponsors from vlogging and stuff. I'm sorry, that's new generation. What do? I'm making a video right now. I'm making audio because people like to listen to it. Don't shit on, I mean, you guys obviously don't, but I don't understand why people are like, "Oh, she's just here because she's an influencer." Well, yes and no. She does have the talent to race. She's clearly showed that in several motorsports, specifically off-road racing. Okay, that takes a ton of talent. She's learning. Okay, she's gotten wins, in K&N. Still, you can argue. I can understand arguments back and forth, but she has talent. Okay, outside of that, there's not a lot of people with talent in racing that just happen to be female, like Nally Decker. Oh man, nothing like the Busch push sponsorship and those drivers not even making the race. Anyway, moving on to Danica Patrick really quick. I'm not a fan of her being in the booth of stuff. It drove me crazy when they would do the Indy 500 and they'd have her on the pre-race stuff, because you haven't shown me. I don't want your analysis. I'm not being harsh. Yes, you've led laps in the Indy 500. Congratulations. Yes, you've won a race in IndyCar. Congratulations. Okay? You did on fuel mileage. And we're shitting on, because yet again, I shit on races I poke holes in arguments, And so she never drove through the field to win, okay? She never showed talent-wise. She had it, which I think she had way more talent in open-wheel racing. But then again, anytime you'd see her, I was so happy to see her wreck in the last 500 that she did, the Indy 500 and the Daytona 500, just because I knew she would. But if anything, she had more talent in IndyCar and in open wheel, and I still didn't like that analysis. I certainly don't like it in NASCAR, because she never showed any real stock car ability. Oh, but Brent, she got a pole in the Daytona 500. Okay, driver, sure, we'll give her that. She didn't show the talent wise. Even Randy, like let's really take a step back real fast. I'm gonna go through all the previous color commentators that we have had that were drivers, and let's thumb up or thumb down. And we're even going to go through the 2010s and 2000s, okay? Jeff Gordon, clearly a genius. Horrible commentator, but clearly had the talent. Clint Boyer, clearly had the talent. You know, comparing Boyer and Clint, it's clearly, or comparing Gordon and Boyer, it's clearly Gordon on the talent-wise, Boyer on the commentating-wise, but they were still there. Jeff Burton, clear talent. Earnhardt Jr., clear talent. Okay, so we've covered the 2020s. We go to 2019s. Let's see. Darrell Waltrip was in there, clear talent. Let's keep going back. I doubt we've had any real changes since the 2000s. Let's see. Wally Dallenbach, clear talent. A winner in multiple series. None of those series were NASCAR, but we have seen him win in multiple road racing series. He has 3 class wins in the 12 hours of Sebring. You know, he's won the Daytona 2400. I know he's won other road course events. Clear talent. He knows what he's talking about. He's there. You can argue that Danica and Wally were side by side in terms of talent, but I think Wally still had a ton more talent there. Kyle Petty, clear talent. You know, you had Dale Jarrett, clear talent. You know, when you keep going through, when you look at Andy Petrie, you know, clear talent as a crew chief, had experience racing in the lower series of NASCAR, knew what to do, okay? I mean, he clearly crew chief for Dale Earnhardt. Like, Andy Petrie knows what he's talking about. You know, as we get closer to, you know, the mid-2000s, you had Rusty Wallace, clear talent. You had good old BP, Benny Parsons, rest in peace, big man, I love you, clear talent. And so when you look at Danica, I mean, I'm just comparing her to the people we've had in the booth. Like I said, I haven't even talked about her talent. I don't think she's a good person to have up there explain to people what to do, because she could never do that. It'd be very equivalent to me, a guy that I think I can talk my way through quite a few things, but it'd be very equivalent to me telling people how to do certain things, okay? Like, I think that's terrible. And so there's a good chance I mute the broadcast for these races, just because I don't like Danica Patrick and how she talks. Secondly, she was a terrible driver. That's just how it was. Stat to stat, you're only as good as your stats say you are in the grand scheme of things. A lot of DNFs, a lot of issues, and a lot of times where it was just not my fault. I don't know, he ran me too hard. You know, it was just, I don't like that. I don't like it. Danica Patrick, I'm just not a fan of that. So, winning on that, thank you for listening. Half an hour here, and yeah, main takeaways from the season opener at Daytona is that these next gen cars are stiff as a board, and we're alive again. NASCAR racing has danger. You know, right when I open up saying these cars are too safe after Myatt Snider's wreck, the next gen comes in and shows me that we are back to racing with lives on the line. Thank you very much for listening, and we will see you guys in the preview videos this week, and we'll wait to see if there's anything to rant about after Auto Club, but we'll see you then.